I can read a little bit more.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Spreaker Internet Radio and hopefully soon Be Live TV, which has given us a little bit of a fit and a start this evening. But hello, Sandy Herrick.
Hello, Dana. How are you?
I am doing well. And it's saying this evening that the Be Live TV system is once again encountering an internal problem. Talk about obstacles along the path, right?
Talk about obstacles along the path. So does that mean nobody can see us? Are we verbal?
We are. I mean, we are right now on Spreaker Internet Radio, which is just terrific. How are things out there in the Northeast?
Well, we have been posted for a storm that's supposed to be quite intense. And as we know, Lily is experiencing that storm down in the area of DC and whatnot, but it'll be coming up. And so I had to cancel my class tonight, cancel clients and all that. But I feel good because I need to recover from all the travels, all the journeying, all the experiences. It's been a wonderful year to traverse. Oh, pouring. It just started to
I can
pour.
hear it. Wow.
Here comes the rain.
Here comes
So
the rain.
I'm good. I'm safe. We're warm. We're here. I'm with you. Everybody that's out there, snuggle up, get a drink, get a cup of tea or something a little bit more libating, and I'm just so happy to be here with you. I've been out of the loop for a while.
You have.
Excuse me. It's good to see you. It's good to be back.
That's good to have you back. Sandy, every month when we get together, I always ask you this, and I'm going to ask you again if you would take a moment to do a bit of a centering.
Absolutely. Because tonight is about what obstacles are on the path, or those blocks that are on the path. And because everybody that I know right now is facing some place in their life that requires courage. And so it is by these moments that we are etched into who we are. If we always got a free pass, we wouldn't be interesting. And I'm honoring this as we find out who we are when we're challenged a whole lot more by just be given the opportunity to be without any identity, because we don't have to formulate one. We don't have to find out or discover that etched edge inside of us. So let's take a deep breath and close our eyes. And because we are in Spreaker, that means that our voices are very important. And so I ask you to really listen to that inner voice inside you as you take this breath and hear the voice that speaks to you. Not just my voice, but the voice that enters your psyche. The voice that vibrates inside your hearing. The vibration of the current that brings a voice into that inner being. Deep breath and welcome. Welcome to you. Welcome to your courage. Our courage is a place inside us that awaits. Our courage is nested inside us until it is needed. Our fighter is waiting for our beck and call. comes when it is inspired out of need and inspiration. Our adrenaline is something that is in pause until that which in the universe says, act now. Do not think, do not feel, but be real. Think bigger, be bigger, and allow that which is the universe and you to connect. Deep breath. And know that all these aspects of you are attentive, are important to the character building of your soul, your spirit, your humanness. And yes, there are times when we are challenged and we wished we were not. But these aspects of this that are inside us are your friends, your champions, the inner aspect of who you are that serves the greater call when we are in need. Trust they exist, embrace them when they come, and know that they are here because of the love, the courage, and the aspiration to be at your side when your side feels abandoned or lonely. To know that you are encouraged, inspired, and become one with Spirit. Deep breath. And welcome to our show, and welcome to you, and welcome to us. Open your eyes when you're ready. And be ready to be you. Thank you, Dana.
Mm-hmm. Obstacles along the path. It's kind of a hot topic these days. A lot of people feeling as though they're being blocked. They're being startled into a new direction, shocked into a new direction. And the question always is, why am I encountering this obstacle? Why is it that I'm being made to choose right or left? What's with the fork in the road anyway? There are a couple of ways of looking at it. Oftentimes it turns out to be a gift, but it can be, in that moment, feeling like it's anything but a gift. When you think about obstacles that you've encountered, Sandy, are there any that stand out as being ultimately an amazing blessing for you?
Well, the ones that are dear to me are always the loss of a life, the obstacle of a death. And that is of my beloveds, my animals, or people dear to me, or the obstacle of knowing that I can't control something or change something. It is placed in front of me, and I have to have the opportunity to see that even though I don't like it, I cannot change it. And therefore the obstacle is, I'm going to be very honest here, either attacking my vanity or attacking my sense of security with Spirit, or just upsetting me to the point that I don't want to have to engage with it. I'm not ready. And obstacles are so diversified in all of our lives that, we have to look at the magnitude of the obstacle, not just the obstacle of inconvenience. But, I want to dedicate this show to my mentor, Priscilla Hoback, and the obstacle for her she's gone. And that obstacle is I have to deal with her passing. I want to give my heart to David Fix for the obstacle right now, the loss of his mother. And what does that do to our endeared friend? And yet, how can it be different? The obstacle of the inconvenience of a roadblock, or I have to take a right turn and I wanted to take a left turn. We have to value the obstacle as how important or significant is. Is it just something that pisses me off in the moment because I'm inconvenienced, or is it something that is life altering? And no matter what I feel about it, I have to deal with it. And so when you say, are there one, there are so many, but I would say the most significant one is like the one in the middle of mine had a breakdown. And the obstacle was I had everything in my life, and it wasn't my life. My own success became my obstacle. And what happens when we get our dreams and they all come true and they turn into a nightmare? And so that quality of, oh my God, is this really my life? Or is this a life I desired and found out I'm bigger than even what it is I thought would be my success? And it turns out that it makes me inadequate to what it really is in my soul to be. How about you, Dana?
Well, I would agree that, a lot of times it is the passing of somebody that we love that all of a sudden throws us into chaos. And that chaos becomes an obstacle. But I've also learned, at least on the spiritual path, that there are times along the path where when I'm just about to get to the next in my spiritual learning or advancement in teachings, that I can run into roadblocks, being late, being held up, the flight is canceled. There are so many things that happen. And I remember years ago, my spiritual director, Charmaine at the Dominican Center, saying to me, well, every time we're trying to enhance our light or increase our light, what we call the darkness will often cast a shadow in order to test us or to see just how much we are dedicated to what's next along the path. Or, you know what I'm saying?
I do. Does this break us and stop us, or does this crack us and open us up?
Exactly. Yes.
And there is a huge difference. Without shame or blame, it's a reality check.
Right.
Because it does challenge the very core of who are we. And I think it's important to acknowledge and to make significantly clear that roadblocks are a norm in life, not an abnormal experience in life. And this I have to shake my finger to a little bit to the New Age that says, if you've got it and figure it out, nothing bad will ever happen to you. Well, in all due respect, if you've got it and you're living your life, it doesn't mean that life stops happening to you. It means you elevate your experience as life presents itself to you. Yeah. It's your attitude about it, not it stopping so you don't have to have an experience that inconveniences you.
Exactly. And a lot of people look at an obstacle, and you're right about the New Age movement, in that everything for some is supposed to be comfortable and easy flowing and readily attainable. And I've met people that have been late to a class, or maybe they never made it to a class and they're taken into another direction, and they feel as though they've been punished. That there's something in them or something around them that's punishing them. There are people who feel as though an illness, perhaps, that they're walking through or journeying through is a punishment of some sort, rather than, we were talking about it last night in Paul Krause's class here on Zen Buddhism, about taking the middle way in looking at what is this obstacle providing for me? Is it providing a space for me to have another look? Is it providing a space to take a deep breath? Is it providing a space to be better prepared? is the obstacle in the form of an illness teaching me something more about my body, about my physicality? There are so many ways of looking at an obstacle rather than, why am I being punished? I'm a spiritual person, Sandra Herrick. Why is this happening to me right now?
Right. Right. And to know that there is that diabolical kind of insanity that says if anything happens to you, the universe is giving you a challenge that you don't deserve.
Exactly.
And this is a come to Jesus meeting here, in that place of, there are individuals in our world that are dying and starving and have no housing and all of and so it's really radical when we, who have so much safety in so many ways, would conclude that we're inconvenienced because we're not feeling the comfort that we're accustomed to. This is not a lecture, anybody. This is just one of those global observations now, where because we are so globally astute and exposed, that what are we grateful for? What are we aware that we are not having to deal with? So that when we do have to deal with something, we can see it as something that is not a punishment or a denial. It's life that we are living, and we need to live through the moment of our life best we can, find the support inside ourselves, and also pull on that spiritual triad behind us, Mother, Father, Self, Holy Mother, whatever your Trinity is.
Yeah.
To bring it into your prayer so that you have the fortitude and the gratitude to know I have everything I need, and in this moment I wish to use it, and be grateful to pass through whatever I'm going through with the awareness I need to stay conscious. I need to stay attentive to now, and not regret that it's here, but stay attentive to where I am. I know there are individuals, and here I am a little bit on my high Howard course, that go, well, this shouldn't be happening to me because, and when they're not conscious, when they're saying this shouldn't be happening, they lose the moment of what I need to do next, and become a little bit lazy because it's just not supposed to be happening. Rather than, who else loses a job? Then you go and find another job, or you actively look for what you need to do. You put your big boots on, you strap in, you strap up, and I think it takes courage to be alive.
I would agree with that.
And that seems to be where we're going right now in our day and age. It takes courage to be a woman and stand up. It takes courage to be a man and to start changing the mindset of being a man, in all due respect, and having to respect women that are asking men to be gentlemen and partners and friends, rather than graced with their manhood that says I can do anything I want when I want, and women are at my beck and call.
Right.
So everything is being challenged. Who we are as women, that we can't just sexualize men to get through our life, and may the best set of knockers win. Hey, I'm from the 60s, where you got to work it in order to get it. And to know that this is about the spirit and the soul coming in and saying, I am going to be who I am, not what they want. So when you ask what are some of the blocks in the road, right now, transgender, the block in the road is an opinion about who they're supposed to be, rather than the grace of finally saying, God created you for who you are, and anybody that has an idea of what God didn't create needs to take a look at God's creation. God was rather entertaining in being a creative being.
Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. Yes.
That is the truth. We're
Yes.
diversified.
We're very diversified. Obstacles come in judgment. They come in so many forms. And, being able, from a spiritual perspective, to say, what's being presented to me? What am I to learn from it? And sometimes when we encounter an obstacle, our own prejudice, our own circumstances with family, whatever it is that doesn't want us to go down that path, right? When we can sit back and get really quiet, and whether we have to go into a place of meditation or contemplation, asking for divine help in trying to see. I don't think anything happens randomly. And, there are people who disagree with me. I think everything happens for a reason. We may not know in the moment, and sometimes we do have to ask for divine intervention in trying to understand. Or we hope one day we have 20/20 vision so we can say, oh my God, so that's why that happened. But obstacles, I believe, are presented sometimes to really break us down, to break down our conditioning. What are we conditioned to automatically respond in a certain way? What are we conditioned to automatically think or do? You know me, having these 2 kids of mine, plus Colton, 3 kids of mine. I always said I'm never going to say never. Because if I say my kid is never going to do that, I know my kid is going to do it. So I just assumed any one of the 3 was going to try and do everything. And by not saying that'll never happen, I was covered by, then being able to say, well, I never said that was, my kids would never do that. Because, so when it does happen and the obstacle happens, you're kind of broken down in some ways to say, I cannot believe my child did that. I cannot believe I did that. What was I thinking? Because have you ever looked back, Sandy, on your spiritual path and thought to yourself, did I really study there with those people, or did I really do that? What was
my whole review is what whole reigns wonderment. What got me there? What did I learn there? What was I doing there? I'm not proud of every action and reaction that I have had. There are times it's like, Sandy, how did that come out of your mouth? Why? And this is not about where I was and who I was with. This was who I was when I was with where I was with when I was there.
Yeah.
There's some moments in my life it's like, I did what? What? And the obstacle actually was myself. My opinion about where I was, or my experience of where I was and my reaction to it, or the fact that I was there and I didn't know what I was doing there, but I was there and I still had to figure it out. I was inconvenienced with my lack of ability to feel safe in the moment, or be aware of the moment as something that I needed to experience and I would be safe within time. I think out of everything, when we talk about an obstacle, what does an obstacle mean? And for me, the obstacle is it in my way from getting to where I want to go? Is it interrupting me from my desire? Is it actually a stop sign with a caution button that says, you'd be an idiot if you trudged through me right now, so maybe you would respect the pause. So many obstacles paid off in hindsight to keep me from where I thought I was supposed to be, from getting into more danger.
Yes.
Canceled plane means if you were on it, you don't want to be in where it was you thought you had there.
Yes.
And there's that place where our anxiety, because I have been in places where the obstacle had many people included or just myself. And the obstacle is interesting to watch everybody's reaction to where they are in a group scenario that creates an obstacle. And this is one of those moments where, do you go with the crowd? Do you lean on somebody else's decision? Or do you observe for yourself, your own participation? Am I anxious? Am I mad? Am I frustrated? Am I entitled? It should just happen. Am I patient and listening to Spirit? Am I surrendering to the experience so that I can be with it? Or am I resisting the experience and missing out on where I am because I don't like it? Mm-hmm. So there's a test in the checkbox. Is the universe giving you a test? I really don't know, but I know you're being tested to find out who you are, and who are you when you show up to an obstacle. Do you immediately get huffy and puffy, or do you go, wait a minute, let's see if there's electricity in the water and maybe we shouldn't put our feet in it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've been in groups of people where there have been obstacles. What happens for you when you watch the mindset of a collective?
Well, oftentimes when I see the mindset of a collective that becomes an obstacle, it's oftentimes what I've learned, it's conditioning, generational conditioning. I've been in groups of spiritual people where ultimately male chauvinism has been the downfall for me.
Wow. And in what way? Can you be more detailed?
I can be, in that women are not supposed to have positions of leadership. Men have the positions of leadership. That's conditioned thinking. And for me, in my generation, what?
Yeah.
I don't think so. So for me, the obstacle in that particular spiritual setting was women do not hold a place of power, ultimately. And so the obstacle for me was a pause to say, Dana, how much further are you going to go with this particular group, knowing how you are thought of in your womanhood, or what your womanhood is thought of? Not right. You as a lecturer or any of those kind of things, but as a woman, no different than my divorce from my first husband. Right. That in that moment, I was no longer allowed to take Holy Communion at the Catholic Church.
Oops.
That for me, for a brief moment, was an obstacle. I was born into and raised and went through all of everything, as we do. First Communion and all, confirmation. And all of a sudden, I'm being told, as a divorced woman, the rules of the country club now say I cannot participate as I once did. Did I consider that to be an obstacle? No, I considered that to be a segue into what would be next along my religious or my spiritual path.
Excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. So
yeah, no problem. So, for some people, an obstacle means they're dead in the water. For other people, the obstacle is a moment to say, what are my priorities now? Who am I really? Where am I going? I may not know, but let's take a step toward it and see.
Well, it's fascinating that you use the reference to your divorce in your first marriage, when in my first marriage, it was the wedding. Oh. The obstacle was the wedding.
Wow.
And that is because I was loving somebody who was not Catholic. And the priest let me know when I went to ask for, a service and a wedding day with, well, you can't get married at the altar. And oh, by the way, your children and your marriage will not be sanctioned. And so they will not be acknowledged as Catholic and can't be baptized and can't. And in that moment, I could either say, oh God, I can't fall in love with the person I'm in love with and have their children. I have to say no. Or I could say, excuse me, you're telling me God is making them wrong and already putting shame and sin on them because we fell in love? And in that moment, the obstacle was not the Catholic Church, but how much I needed the Catholic Church to tell me if I was good enough to be in love. And I said, thank you very much, but I'm leaving. And went over with my to-be husband at that time to the Unitarian Church and sat down and listened to the priest or the father talk about the Unitarian modality, and I started crying because it had no judgment. It had total inclusion. And I would say in that moment, the obstacle brought me to something that gave me sanctuary, that activated a spirituality for me, that altered the direction of my life. So I was literally shamed and shunned into having to stand up to the way this priest is telling me God is. I felt, and I will always hold this as the beacon of my soul telling me this is less than who you are. If you only listen to the priest tell you all you can be is that. I was less than who I was. And it was an obstacle not just of faith, it was an obstacle of, do I have the right to say to God, you better be a better God than the way it's being explained? Because it did not feel compassionate at that time. Mm-hmm. And it gave me the opportunity, and I want to be very, very clear and very respectful. It does not say, I am not saying any religion is wrong. Mm-hmm. I am saying at that moment in time, because back in 1969, the Catholic religion was more stringent than it is now. And it had to learn how to include women and to be more generous to the community rather than exclusive. Because in all due respect, because of the history of the Catholic Church, it started losing parishioners and had to be more humble in obtaining it again. So they had an obstacle, and it was progression, humanity. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very, very grateful that even the Catholic Church would have to be humbled into how do you become humane, not just righteous. But in that moment, I clear enough in my heart to know that you cannot take wholly from me because I fell in love. And I think that's ancient, Dana.
I would agree.
Yeah, and I really would like to explore that, the obstacle of being your karmic collective ancientness that is dealing in the here and now. Mm-hmm. We do have that spiritual endeavor to deal with right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there are community obstacles. So whether it's in the Catholic Church realizing there's an obstacle, or a group of people, such as a family, realizing there's an obstacle, it's an opportunity really to, I believe, to take a look, to become aware and awake and realistic. And there are times when the obstacle is presented so that we can say, this is just not for me any longer. Perhaps it never was. But oftentimes, particularly in groups, when the obstacle, whether it's an interior obstacle, in my case, choosing that I was not going to go to Mass every Sunday and, sit there like some, woman with a scarlet A on her shirt, while everyone else went to communion. I decided that clearly I'm receiving a message right now, and it's about my womanhood. And my daughter, who was 12 at the time, looked at me and said, "Mom, that is some BS. Just because of that? I don't think so. So I'm not going to church either." And so she still very much enjoys a Catholic Mass. I do as well. But it was a hurdle in that moment.
Exactly.
As a divorced woman. And in the other group, it was my womanhood.
Yeah. And I just went to the Catholic Church out in Santa Fe and, sat in that place of when things got really, when there were great obstacles in my life. Mm-hmm. I'm belching for anybody that doesn't know that I belch. It's because spirit comes through me at these moments. I would sit in the pew and speak to the God, the images, the deities, the, excuse me, the reverence and the structure of Catholicism. And I'm only speaking of Catholicism because that was my bones sitting there as a child. It could be Buddhism, it could be shamanism, it could be spiritualism, it could be, Scientology, it could be whatever it is. That there's that place where I went there because it is a part of my upbringing that gave me a sense of refuge.
Yes.
It was the structure that gave me refuge. It wasn't necessarily it's not necessarily the mass. It was the context of this building, this architecture, this ceremony. Out of all the ones that I use and I am a part of, still is a part of my toolbox. Excuse me. And so when I sit in a church, I can sit in the reverence of its formality, of its significance inside me. And I can go to the mountains where I just was in my, the many hurdles and roadblocks that I met in Santa Fe. When I thought I found the rest of my Santa Fe said, pit stop, Sandy. It's the continuation of your soul and will always be a part of your life. It's not just the rest of your life. And I saw that roadblock as, why do I get sent away from where I love? And 30 years later, I can say, because there was more to love and experience. And that roadblock was wiser than my need for it not to exist. I think that's one of the major things that we can talk about, is to know that, yes, in hindsight, some of the greatest roadblocks in my life were the greatest initiators of the next. And they did not shame me when I cried, or felt inferior, or denied, or shamed because they were present. I felt all those feelings. I felt shamed. I felt humiliated. I felt belittled. I felt, why me? Poor me. How come? I mean, that checklist of what we go through that is normal when we feel excluded and unembraced after feeling so embraced. It's amazing how a roadblock can make us doubt our validity, as it's giving us more validity to not doubt once we achieve the hurdle. I mean, that's a profound thing to say, and I know anybody that's facing the road right might tell me, yes, Annie, but I'm right. Then all I can say is, sit within your faith, not in your disgrace. And know that you just haven't figured, and there's always a way, and it will come to you. So there's that. Breathe, be patient, and stay available for the sign of the direction to take.
Exactly.
When we're love, comes our faith, the value.
Sometimes, the obstacles, you're starting to break up a little bit over there, Sand. Maybe it's the storms your way. Sometimes the obstacles can
We've been coming in us.
Sometimes the obstacles we can encounter can also be, things that, such as the color of our skin.
Yes.
It can be
Yes.
the shape of our body. Obstacles can be part of our physicality. And that can be some of the toughest, even on the spiritual path, with other people who are supposed to be spiritual. Well, you can't be as spiritual as me because you're not like me, or you're too white, you're too dark, you're too this, you're not enough that. And so for some people, the obstacle literally becomes their physicality. And that can be one of the hardest obstacles to overcome, because we can't necessarily change the color of our skin or our eye color or our hair, or our physical body. And maybe, we have some conditions with our body. And overcoming, particularly I think here in the West, overcoming body image anyway is huge in this country. But then add to it, but everybody on the spiritual path is just supposed to be, kind, compassionate, forgiving, all-inclusive. And why aren't they? That can be really, really hard. And so I think next time when we're together, I see that we're way past the 8:30 time frame. We'll talk about that. The obstacles along the path that really have everything to do with our physicality, this physical body that we've been given, and conditions of our humanity, our socioeconomic status, all of those sorts of things. It does play into, what can become an obstacle along the spiritual path. So with that, everyone, thank you for joining us here on Spreaker, and kind of my favorite way of letting it go anyway, right? On internet radio, my favorite. But thank you for tuning in or listening to the archive. Sandy and I appreciate each and every one of you. So with that, everyone, blessings be, and remember, obstacles and 2020 vision, that hindsight can often provide us with some blessings being presented in disguise. So get out there and shine on. Just be you.